What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Where Winds Meet, a recently released free-to-play action-adventure that has like some MMO elements alongside co-op, but I don't know that I'd necessarily call it an MMO per se. But to be very blunt and upfront with people, this isn't really my usual type of jam. Enough people were asking me about it that I wanted to take a look at it for myself, and I can safely say now that, again, while it's not my cup of tea personally, I can see why people are having so much fun with it. It certainly has its moments. The monetization on the free-to-play side of it, of course, means that there's going to be things like battle passes, cosmetic stores, stuff like that. All of that is in here. It mostly just seems to be cosmetic. I didn't notice anything particularly egregious, and in most cases you have to go looking for it to find it, which is about the best case scenario for these free titles. Combine that with making an absolute monstrosity of a character, potentially. Some interesting mechanics like throwing a bear to break open some rocks, so some things to cover for sure. But as I mentioned, this game features some MMO elements. There are things like dungeons, raids, that kind of stuff, but you can also play it solo if you prefer. There's like a solo mode in particular. There's also co-op where you can run around with just up to like 4 people. And so there's a pretty big variety to the overall experience, just sort of in that way. But the moment-to-moment gameplay of it is this sort of Wuxia-inspired action-adventure type gameplay where you are pulling off some incredibly flashy moves as you take down various opponents with a variety of martial arts and, of course, special abilities while you are at it. And honestly, the movement in combat does feel pretty good. It's very fluid. You got a lot of options, weapon types, play styles, the usual stuff. And while there is not like a typical class-oriented system based on like the weapons and things you're using, the quest lines you've completed, you can take up things like a role as a healer as an example, which is actually pretty interesting given the way the doctor mechanic works here. But all of that really starts with character creation, and you can, as probably expected, make some absolute monsters in character creation. Saw a lot of SpongeBob, a lot of handsome Squidward, but character creation actually comes a bit after the initial tutorial, and that is because much of the story revolves around that kind of what your background and identity actually is, as you are a little unfamiliar with it yourself, and you need to track down your uncle who has disappeared in order to confirm this information following an attack where somebody stole something from you. The tutorial sees you playing as your uncle, rescuing you, a baby at the time, from a bunch of pursuers. Now this is done through some cutscenes with QTEs and then the actual gameplay tutorial or combat tutorial primarily, and if you're anything like me, my first initial thought was, well, you know, what if you just don't do any of these QTEs? What happens? And as I suspected, if you fail these enough or just simply don't try, it will eventually either just push you forward or give you the opportunity to skip it entirely, which I thought was funny. Which I only mention because this isn't the kind of game that's ever going to be like a Souls-like or anything, and they obviously want you to get into the content. And so it's always interesting to, you know, find the skill floor, basically, but it does actually come with a variety of different difficulties, like story recommended, that kind of thing. So even if this type of generally more fast-paced combat isn't for you, there are a lot of options to get through things. And in fact, I noticed this is something that is consistent throughout the main story, at least, where if you fail like whatever combat-oriented thing it wants you to do enough times, it will eventually just be like, you want to skip this? But me being intentionally difficult to a piece of software for no reason aside, combat is actually pretty fun, with a lot of it coming down to things like your mystic arts and abilities that you'll be able to use alongside the weapons, which dictate, of course, how you attack, things like that. There's also a parry or dodge system. Enemies will occasionally have wind-ups that either can't be blocked or in some cases can't be blocked or parried, and you simply have to dodge out of the way, that kind of thing. And so if you've ever played a game like this, I think you'll get the idea of what the combat is trying to do. But again, it's a very fluid system in terms of the movement and feel of it. Now, as you start completing quests and whatnot, you will have more options via things like a bow and arrow, which can even come with a few different types of arrows that will let you, say, burn through the environment. So there's even some exploration-oriented stuff there. Now, I will say on the flip side, when it comes to like progression of a lot of individual mechanics, that's where things definitely feel more like an MMO, or at the very least, a free-to-play title might be the way to put it, as you've got all sorts of equipment you can put on, of course, but then that can be upgraded and enhanced. Your character is also leveling up. You'll eventually hit a cap, at which point you are met with like a breakthrough point, which from what I understand is time-gated a little bit, which is not a monetization thing, I don't think. I think it's just like a seasonal time thing. But once you get a couple levels in, the game starts unfolding more mechanics to you, and this is when you'll start earning talent points. Talent points are going to do a lot for you, such as give you potential abilities and also unlock the slots to use your mystic arts or your abilities in full. Upgrading a lot of your gear, like your martial arts, things like that, will then of course increase all the damage that you deal with those things. And it's a lot of just like little multifaceted type of stuff that is, I would say, pretty standard in most free-to-play type games. But even beyond just that stuff, there's also a lot of, I would say, fun interactions with the environment. One of the early quests you do sees you observing a bear in order to learn the mystic art of Tai Chi, only to then utilize it to pick that bear up and throw it into some rocks nearby to uncover some treasure. There are also mounts in the game, except as I learned sort of by accident, one of the ways in which you can acquire those mounts is just steal them from people, like GTA style, which I thought was honestly pretty hilarious. And that's to say nothing of the myriad of different activities, mini-games, all that stuff you can get up to, the exploration, the sort of presentation of what is in fact 10th century China. All together gives you a lot to do. It's presented in a pretty fun way, and all in all, I can see why people have been enjoying this so much and why people were asking me to take a look at it, because I do think it's pretty neat overall. However, again, it's not for me personally, and so obviously I'm never going to review it, nor do I ever review multiplayer type stuff really anyway. This does certainly seem to be a lot better than you would probably think, just judging by the first glance of it, and for the low price of free, technically, I can see why so many people are trying it out, of course. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Mostly just wanted to jump in and see what the general buzz was about for myself. No plans to take this any farther at all, but it was fun to jump in and see what everybody was talking about, and I'm glad everybody's having fun with it. But that for today is pretty much going to do it. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.